5 o'clock, so I would like to call this joint meeting of the City of Brunswick and Glynn County Commission to order. In an effort to adhere to the guidelines set forth by the CDC for the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being held via video teleconference. The public has simultaneous access to the meeting. The meeting will be streamed online for public viewing through the Glynn County Board of Commissioners YouTube and Facebook pages. And if we could, we'll do a roll call before we get started. We'll do the county's roll call, and then we'll ask the mayor if he'll do the city roll call. So if you're ready, commissioners, Commissioner Tostenson.
Present.
Commissioner Fendig.
Present.
Commissioner Brunson.
Here.
Commissioner Booker.
Here.
Commissioner O'Quinn.
Here.
Commissioner Wolfowski.
Here.
Commissioner Neal's here. Alan Hours.
Present.
Aaron Mumford.
Present.
And Dwani Patel.
Present.
Are there any other people with the county present today that we need to be aware of? Okay, Mr. Mayor, if you would do your roll call, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay, on the city commission, Commissioner Harris.
Present.
Commissioner Casey.
Here.
Commissioner Williams. He seems to not have gotten in yet, but he should be coming pretty soon, hopefully. Mayor Pro Tem Martin.
Present.
Okay. Also, our city manager is here.
Yes, present.
All right. City attorney.
Present.
Okay. Anyone else that's associated with the city, will you please identify yourself?
Naomi Atkinson, City Clerk, present.
Yes, I saw that. I also saw Miss Treese Hamilton. She's here for. Well, she's here. Also, our assistant city manager.
Yes, Mayor Harvey. Thank you.
Okay. All right. That concludes the city council, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're here today to have this joint meeting so that we can discuss the special purpose local option sales tax for 2021. And the purpose is to explore the options that we want to look at and just open the floor for discussion for where we want to go. We know that we have a deadline by the end of January to be able to put this on a March referendum. So we're looking to try to bring our list together to discuss anything that is of special interest to any of our people present. So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to give it to you to start this, if you would, and tell us what the city might have in mind as we move forward.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we have been meeting informally about the SPLOST. Everybody really I think all the commission really want to see a SPLOST. We were happy that you sent the letter to tell us that there will be one going forward. However, we realize that we need to, each of us need to pare down our list because as we look forward, we don't know whether we're looking for a 3-year SPLOST or a 5-year SPLOST. We have some information concerning that. I think you have given us some information. However, as I look at my list, the list that we have here, I think our city manager can give more in-depth conversation about our list, unless some of the commissioners want to speak about it.
Mr. Mayor, if I might interject, should we decide if we're going to have a 5 or 3 year before we talk about paring down the list?
Well, you know what? That's the reason. That's true. You're right. I think we have.
What the money would be?
Yes.
That
Have
we're
we
working on?
decided? I meant to ask you that question last night. Have we decided yet as to what's going to be? Had the board of commission
Mr.
decided?
Mayor, I believe that the consensus is leaning toward a 3-year SPOS, and that we would be looking somewhere around a $65 million SPOS. Our numbers are coming in a little stronger than that. Mr. Hours, it would support as much as maybe a $75 million. Not quite that. And but we're looking at trying to do it as a 3-year.
Okay. Well, have we decided? Have you all decided? I say you're looking to that, but have we really decided as to what that's going to be? I know we have. Since you gave us that information, we have pared our list down to a 3-year.
Okay, sir. I think that's the way that we would move forward. Does any other county commissioners have any input into that they would like to add?
Mr. Chairman, Captain Fendig here. I think so the general public understands that, and just to recap the history, is that the SPOS last year was intended on being a 5-year SPOS. The previous commission voted because of the impact of COVID and other concerns to delay that SPOS, and that's why the torch has passed over to us. I think one of the things that we felt, the new commissioners, and I'm just speaking for myself, but I think we've all talked that, one of the big numbers on the previous SPOS proposal was a 23 million tier 1 project for the courthouse. And that number was vague based on basically a space analysis. And I know that when we talked with the sheriff and the clerks and the courts, that they weren't sure about those numbers and that felt like they hadn't had enough feedback. So I think in this particular SPOS, that particular project is one that's being set aside for the future. And we feel that this commission will do its due diligence of what the community expects, and that's to get some planning done on some of these big projects. We're talking about other capital projects that are large in size and scope that were on the previous list that really need some more planning. So I think the community is really, their feedback is, let's have some planning on some of these bigger projects and draw a little tighter box and get a plan going. And so I think that's at least my understanding and feeling from my constituents on the island is why they are preferring a 3-year SPOS and wanting us to plan on the courthouse. These are things we need in the future and some of these bigger projects. So I think that's why we're at the discussion of 3-year, just so that the public understands some of the thinking, at least I think, that we've had in discussions.
Well, Mr. Commissioner Fendig, I think the city doesn't mind 5 or 3, and whatever you guys decide to do will be beneficial to us anyhow. If the public prefers a 3, then we'll do 3. I realize the courthouse, the planning for the courthouse can be put on the next SPOS or whatever, and so we're open to a 3 or a 5. So a 3 would be great with us. Am I speaking out of turn, commissioners? I'm hearing correctly?
This is Johnny Case, and I'll just say that I will always favor a 5-year SPOS, and I think that's what we should do. I think we're remiss today for not having a SPOS in place, and I think it's all because of the kind of discussion that we're beginning with today. There's not a fairer tax to anybody in this county than what we're talking about right now. It lets everybody in the county participate. It lets everybody in the city participate. I think the thing is that we as a city commission and the county commission need to show the community that we can do something for 5 years. And I don't think there's a better time than right now to do that. I really don't. But we're going to go along with whatever the county says to do, that's for sure. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I really believe that if you think 5 years, you can really put the things in place that will do exactly what Commissioner Fendig just said to do. And that's give you time for planning, time to keep your staff involved, both in a 3-year or in a 5-year SPLOST and the next 5-year SPLOST. So I think where we mess up is not in having continuity. And it's a guessing game. I mean, it's really, is it, but it's not a guess as to whether or not it's a fair tax. And that's why my position can support 5 years. And again, I've been in it. I've done the thing, I've run it, and I know that if you go for 5 years, you're going to be more involved and more ready to explain your position and be ready for the next 5 years. So that's my position, and I appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem, you got any comments?
And if I could address that a little bit to address your concerns. We have discussed the 3 versus the 5, and one of the things with going with the 3-year, we're taking the Tier 1 project off this list. It's our thinking, a consensus of us anyway, that our thinking is that if we plan in one SPLOST and execute in the next, that we'll be closer to what the real costs are going to be. And we're changing the approach that we've done there. We also want to have time to clean up some of the past SPLOST and show the public that we can deal with these things. And my personal feeling on that is I agree with you 100%. A SPLOST is the fairest tax there is out there. And we want to convince the public that we can be responsible with that. And if we are pushing to pass a SPLOST, the SPLOST is still the best tax. So if we don't execute it properly, if we're not responsible in the way that we execute the SPLOST, then fire the commissioners, not do away with the SPLOST. So we're putting ourselves on the line a little bit more by that accountability. And that's sort of the approach that we would like to use on this, that of course we're going to be back and ask for the next SPLOST, but it's incumbent upon us to convince the citizens of Glynn County that we can be responsible, and taking this different approach, we hope that we can ensure that. And that's sort of where some of us are with our thinking on that. That's changing it a little bit from what we have done.
Well, thank you. I certainly understand that. I really do. I just think that the void that you create and the possibilities of not going ahead with a 5-year SPLOST are greater than anything that you could face here in Glynn County in the city of Brunswick. And I really believe that we're missing out on a golden opportunity. The rest of the economy has not done in this country what is projected in it, and that was to be down. And it's the same as in Glynn County. We're up. We're missing a lot of revenue because we're indecisive as to whether or not we can operate and run a 5-year SPLOST. And I'm here to tell you, I believe that we can. I believe the county can do it. I believe the city can do it. So, but I'm with you guys. Whatever you come for, you've got the county to be responsible for, and we're just happy to be here and want to help and to get it to so that people can understand that we can run and we can operate and execute a 5-year SPLOST. So, That's my intention, and I hope it'll be our city commission and the county commission's intention.
This is Commissioner Harris. I know there's a study that's been done by the college, the economists from the college, as well as the county manager and our city manager. And I think that they projected the advantages of a 3-year versus a 5-year. And I believe the 3-year outweighed the 5-year based upon the tiered project that the county has. And it was more advantageous to, at this time, do the 3-year. Did I review that information incorrectly?
You're correct.
So I think based upon that, at present, what's the most pressing economic need that we have? And I think that's what we should be looking at this present time, and moving forward with this SPLOST.
If I could, I believe that the feedback that we're getting from most of the community that has given us feedback so far is that we need to put an emphasis on infrastructure. We need to support the water and sewer. We need drainage. We need roadways resurfaced. That's a major emphasis on what we're looking at moving forward. So I think the community would get behind that. Hope that they would, and that it would show that we're being responsive to the input that we're getting from the community.
Well, I know from the city side, infrastructure has always been one of the priority items on our SPLOST list. So we're looking to kind of expand beyond that, because we are currently moving steadfastly on our infrastructure.
Okay, and that will be reflected in the list that the mayor gives us, and we'll take that list and try to incorporate it. It's our goal, our ambition, to be able to work very closely with the city and moving forward, that we'll have more of these meetings, and that we will be able to complement each other as we move forward.
I think we would. And I want to tell you all congratulations. I didn't get the opportunity to tell you, each and every one of you, in your new capacities, welcome aboard, and we look forward to a great partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question. This is Mayor Pro Tem Martin. Just for clarification, I know Commissioner Neal, you spoke specifically about the Tier 1 courthouse project. So my question is related to that. Is the reason that we're sort of stepping back and only doing a 3-year projection for the next SPLOST is to not lose 5 years of time before perhaps gathering the needed information, the cost estimate, the real need assessment for the improvements to the courthouse, so that you don't lose 5 years. You only might have to wait 3 years before you could pull that back in on a 5-year SPLOST, and it'd be more palatable to the taxpayers and those that are going to bear the burden of the tax.
That's very much part of the thought process that went into it. In this first 3 years, there will be money in there to explore the courthouse needs. Part of that will be the boots on the ground at the courthouse, the getting their space needs, their input as to what we need, what the future space needs are, and consult with them as we develop the need, and then whether or not we would actually build onto the present courthouse, or if we would build an annex building. If we, will be the result of the study that comes from that input that we get from the courthouse, from the sheriff's office on security needs and that kind of thing. But let me, while I'm thinking of it, also say that in this, we will immediately address some of the security needs that exist at the courthouse today. That there will be a response to that, to juvenile court, and some of the needs that are there, that will address the immediate needs immediately, and that's part of this scope. Once we find out what we need for the courthouse, then our desire would be to go on into the architectural drawings for that, to get those ready. And then when we pass the next SPLOST, there would be funds allocated to start phasing that in, or whether or not, the next time around, we would need to do a 5-year or whatever to accomplish the needs that we decide are the needs in this first 3 years. So I think that is in agreement with what you were pointing out, and but that's our goal.
Okay, and I mean, my opinion is ultimately 5-year SPLOST works well. I understand the reason for a 3-year, and I fully support that. I think we've heard from our community on what they are willing to support, and if we tailor the SPLOST and the projects in that direction, then we should be successful in gaining the support for a 3-year SPLOST.
That's our desire as well. Is there any other discussion that anyone would like to talk about with the SPLOST for 2021?
Yes, can you, this is Mayor Harvey again. Can you give us a timeline as to how all that's going to transpire?
What will the timeline for what, Mayor?
Timeline for getting the referendum or getting the resolution and putting it on the ballot, and when we vote or you vote, that's for a 3-year.
We have to have everything in place ready to go by the end of January.
Okay.
Or be able to go to the ballot and get the ballots printed for a March referendum.
Okay.
And if we do not get this on the March referendum, our next opportunity would be in November. Okay. If we do not make it until the November, it will be April of 2022 before we can start collecting SPLOST again. So that's the sense of urgency that we're experiencing now, and while we're pushing really hard to condense this into a short time frame.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, also, if I may, I just want to say to my city commissioners, I know each one of you well, have served with y'all in various capacities. I've had the great privilege to sit on previously on the county commission with 2 5-year SPLOST. I agree with the 5-year SPLOST, but I can tell you that the community is looking, especially this new commission, are we going to do the right things? And the commission, couple of things, the previous commission, one of the big complaints was from the animal shelter crowd. They felt like they had been promised a new animal shelter, and I'm proud that the commission stepped up and went to and got that discussion off the table and approved building a brand new animal shelter, and it's underway. And that was a big issue for the people on the island. And I think the other was that there was clearly, even for myself, a great discomfort about the plan with the courthouse. It wasn't that there wasn't a need, but it was rapidly thrown together and not acceptable. And I think, those are a couple big items that stood out on my island community. And the conversation was, we're not going to support a SPLOST until some right things get done. I think we're moving in the right track. All things considered, I think we'd love to have a 5-year and move forward with that, but we're not ready to do that. Our promise to the community, I think, and I'm just speaking out of the conversation with my new commissioners, especially our promise is that we will do our due diligence on this 2-year SPLOST, that we will prepare for the courthouse, a proper project with cost and some of these other big projects we've got. And I think the voters will be very happy to support a 5-year SPLOST of continuity when we come out of this 3-year. So, unless anybody objects, I'll be glad to make a motion that we do the 3-year SPLOST and help move us ahead if that's an appropriate thing.
Commissioner Findig, I don't think any votes are required today. We wanted to have a discussion in front of the public so that we could see where we want to go. But Mr. Mayor, it's my understanding that we wouldn't be doing votes today.
Yes, sir. If you decide to do votes today, since we are in a meeting of both commissions, you will have to vote, then I will have to vote as well. So I think Aaron and Brian, you probably answer that better than anyone else.
Mr. Mumford, do you want to?
May I weigh in real quick, please? Thank you for everyone for attending. I do think there should be a sense of urgency in deciding the 3 or the 5, and that we need to walk away today and allowing each of us entity and our community to know that we're going with the 3 or the 5. My personal opinion, based on what's already been said, talking to people in the community, the fact that we have a short time frame, is to put the 3-year SPLOST in place, clean up some of the old projects that we have on our books, and show the community we're ready to put together planning for the courthouse. When you look at a $23 million project, if you miss it by 10 or 20% on the estimate, that's a significant amount of money. And from my point of view, spending an extra year or two, going through the process, getting a good concept, and hopefully maybe architectural plans, or at least 60% done plans, so that we can get some really good estimates involved, is the prudent thing to do financially for our community. And so I would encourage us to walk away today, and I don't know about the votes, and the attorneys can speak to it, but having in our mind, and for the community to know, that we're talking about either a 3 or a 5, my vote being for the 3.
Commissioner, let me weigh in there too. I don't think we can have a meaningful discussion today without a definitive answer of how long the SPLOST is going to be. I mean, I just don't know how you do that. We're running out of rope here, and we're running out fast. We've only got probably 3 weeks before we got to put this thing to bed. I'll reserve comment on getting the estimates and holding them and being able to accurately project what it's going to cost. I'm not going to go there, but I do think that we need to decide today whether it's a 3 or a 5, and that whether it's a vote, we'll let the attorneys weigh in on that. But I don't see how we we go 5 minutes more without knowing how long what our monetary projections are going to be. So, with that having said, I agree with Commissioner O'Quinn. This needs to be decided, and decided today.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, that's why I started out with asking that very question. If we're gonna have a 3 or a 5, it looks like the consensus is that we need to do a 3 now, so we can kind of plan for the big ticket item, possibly the courthouse, going forward. My question is, and I'm okay with the 3, let's go ahead and get this done and move forward. But my question is about the courthouse planning. Are we looking at doing plans during this first year, or the last year, or the middle year? Because if we're going to plan for it and do plans, if we do it in the first year, then they'll be 3 to 4 years old by the time we actually start. So, we have to have some consideration. And I guess I'm just talking really to the county commissioners right now about, since we have to take the lead on that. But I would like to have some clarity on that. Maybe not in this meeting, but as we move forward. because I think that's going to impact, our decision for another 5 year. Because I do think, as you all know, I've told all of you that I'm for a 5 year. I think everybody's for 5 years. How do we get to the 5 year based on what you all are saying in your district? My district is ready. You hear most of it with the mayor and the other commissioners saying that we're ready for a 5. But if you all feel that the other districts are not, I understand that. But I don't want us to do a 3 and then another 3 because we didn't make the right decision about the courthouse. So,
Commissioner,
and again, if you all are not ready, for us to talk about that today, then we can do that later.
Commissioner Booker, I totally agree with you. I think ideally the way that you would approach a tier 1 project of any kind of, multi-million-dollar magnitude is you would bid it, bond it, and build it. I mean, that's the only way that you're going to come up with a number that's anywhere, in similar to the ballpark. But again, that having been said, if the public's not in the mood for a 5 year SPLOST, it's all a moot point, because and the other thing that I think we need to understand, and I think I'm correct here, if we put this thing on the ballot in March and it flunks, we got to wait a year. We can't put it on the November ballot, and I think I'm right on that, and the council can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have November to fall back on if we fail in March. So I think 3 year makes sense, and if we can get it on the March ballot, I think that we need to.
And if I might add something that I think we should begin to share with the public is we actually can do a 6 year SPLOST if the city can grant us an extra year, and they're the only ones that can grant us an extra year. And if we're planning a big outlay project, first tier project like the courthouse, that may be something to consider when we're looking at the next SPLOST, because that will give us an extra year of funding to absorb some of what was taken out by the tier 1 project. Just a thought.
Mr. Mumford, would you weigh in on whether or not we should take a vote tonight, or should we just get a consensus tonight and then add it to our agenda for Thursday night to ratify that?
Commissioners, I think that's a better option, is to, if you want to vote and you want to ratify the 3 years, it seems that the consensus is 3 years. Of course, that will be decided formally in your resolution that you'll adopt with all the projects for city and county. But, in the event you wanted to take a vote and ratify that and confirm it, I think Thursday is the more appropriate venue for that.
Okay, so, and does the city want to weigh in on that?
Brian, will you comment, please?
I would agree. I mean, I would just concur with Aaron's opinion. Of course, we would do it if we want to tomorrow night at the Wednesday night meeting.
And if I might interject one more thing, should we decide tonight about the percentages of the funding? Because we have 2 other entities that we decide to fund, and rightly so. I support funding Joint Water and Sewer and JACO, the JACO Island Authority. But I do know that in the past, when we've had in the last SPLOST, when there was extra money wanted to be given to JACO, it was taken from my district. So I would like up front for us to decide on some percentages. If not tonight, but at some point in time, very soon, because we don't have much time. But we're talking about splitting up possibly 65, maybe $70 million. So how are we going to split that? I mean, since we're all here together, it seems like we should have some consensus about that figure.
I agree with you, Commissioner Booker. We should do that. Might not today, but at another meeting. It should be done before we actually put that on the ballot. Resolution should be done so we know exactly what's what.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, Mr. Mumford. I mean, the split for the city is set. Is that correct? Based on population?
Correct. The default by law is by population. The city and county can agree to a different split through an intergovernmental agreement, but that would require an IGA. If there is no IGA, then the population split is the default.
So Aaron, how did we do the last one? Did we have an IGA?
So there's a number of things that the city and county can agree to, and I think you pointed out one of them, which is an additional year up to 6. And there's some other things that can be agreed to in that IGA. SPLOST 2016 did not have an IGA. We have done that in the past, but not every time. But if there's not one, then the law just specifies that the default split is the population split. But the city and county are free to negotiate a split that's different than that if they so choose.
I think we were worried about the split for Jekyll Island, and also we know what we need to do for joint water and sewer, because both of us have those problems, those infrastructure problems. So that's going to be something that we need to fund. I know that part, but I believe Commissioner Booker may be talking about the split there with the other 2 entities that we give money to out of SPLOST.
So,
Mayor, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but that split for the joint water sewer and Jekyll doesn't come.
It should. That's how it's been before, that it comes out of the county's percentage, not the city's percentage.
I understand that. I'm just saying that it's that's all county money. The city's not participating at JWSC, while there are beneficiaries of those funds that are going to JWSC. And I'm not saying the city's beneficiary of anything going to Jekyll, but those monies are coming out of the county's percent. So I'm not making a statement. I'm just, for clarity, that's the way that goes. It's.
And we very much appreciate that.
Okay.
You should.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could weigh in on that, if we do a $65 million 3-year SPLOST in round numbers, that would give the city of Brunswick about $12.5 million. As our conversations have been with joint water and sewer, they would get $15 million for infrastructure. Jekyll would get about $2.5 million, and it would leave about $35 million. And that's sort of the breakdown in round numbers.
Well, and I appreciate that, but for clarity and for us preparing our list, I would like to just stick to the numbers specifically that were published by the county manager that we projected, which would be a $68.5 million 3-year SPLOST. And we had projected our share of that to be $13.2 million. So that's basically what we're going to build our list on.
All right, well, we will look at that, and we'll certainly be having more conversation about it as we move forward. But that's a good discussion point. And we will talk with our county manager and see if we think the 68 is realistic. That's one of our points of conversation that we're having as we go forward.
And Mr. Chairman, I have no issue with waiting until Thursday night to vote on this, but I think that needs to be the latest time that we pull this trigger as to whether it's a 3 or a 5. So I don't think we've got the luxury of having any more time. So anyway, I've got no problem waiting until Thursday.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, I don't think we need to wait. I mean, if you all are comfortable, I think on our side we're comfortable with a 3. Then I don't see why we need to wait.
it sounds like that is the consensus and it, at least agreeable compromise consensus. So we'll put it on our agenda for Thursday night and ratify it. But I think we would be comfortable in saying that that's the direction we'll go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, because one of my commissioners is not present, so I'd like him to give him the opportunity to actually vote on it just as well. I'm sure that we will all be in agreement for 3 more, but I would like to at least have him to be involved with it. So thank you for that. We will put it on our agenda for tomorrow night. We add it to our agenda, and then we will vote on it and we'll move forward. In Commissioner Booker's question about the percentages, hopefully what's been said is adequate for his understanding. That's good for you, Commissioner Booker?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay.
So assuming that we all agree on a 3-year and we're all able to approve a resolution as such Wednesday night and then Thursday night, what should our next step be? Are we on course with the projection that City Manager Regina McDuffie just stated from prior conversations with Alan Hours, or because we need to know then we need to be one step ahead and prepared for what we need to already be working on so that we meet the deadlines that we need to meet.
Alan, has information changed since you made those projections?
Commissioner Booker, no. The memo that Ms. McDuffie and I sent to the respective commissions, that's still accurate and is supported by the latest sales tax numbers. However, it's the caveat is no one knows what the next year may bring in terms of our economy. And then more importantly than that, it's really what the board feels comfortable with. Even though the recommendation from staff is for 3 years, $68,500,000, if the board would rather be a little bit more conservative with a lower number, that's therefore the board's prerogative. So, that's our recommendation still holds, but if the board wants to be more conservative, then that's their right to do so.
Mr. Hours, are we gonna sunset this at a figure, or are we gonna let it go for 3 years complete?
Mr. Mayor, I believe there's some legalities involved with that, and I would need to defer to Aaron to weigh in on how state law reads to the numbers. In terms of that's probably better answered by Mr. Mumford.
So, Mr. Mayor, with a 3-year SPLOS, the SPLOS will terminate at the earlier of the 2 events, whichever one comes first, either the date or the amount collected.
So we're gonna say 65 instead of 68? If we say 68, then we'll keep going. If we hit 65 early, we may be 6 months short or collecting.
Well, it sounds like it will be about $1 million or so short. If 65 is going to put us at 12 something, or 68 is going to put us at 13 something.
Right.
We'll be about $1 million or so short.
I don't know. Just a question. I know we had that issue last time about whether we, once we reach the threshold, then we quit, or do we take it the full number of years like we want to do. And I know we got a windfall toward the end, but it's just a question. I guess we need to decide after we pass the 3 years as to how we're gonna structure it, the resolution, excuse me. So that's something that I'm sure you, Mr. Mumford and Brian, our city attorney, will help out with doing that.
Mr. Chairman, I guess my and Alan, we just exceeded what we thought during the pandemic. So we really feel like this next year, the next 3 years are going to be worse than the pandemic by that much.
It's hard to say with the economy and its cycles, but I think at this point, we're talking about a difference of $3.5 million. I think maybe we'll speak with the attorney tomorrow. We'll try to be ready by Thursday night's meeting to not only offer the 3-year in the resolution, but the dollar amount. But we need to decide on what that comfort level is going to be.
So then the city won't be able to do anything tomorrow, other than.
No, we're going to pass pass a resolution for 3 years, and then it'd be passed on to you guys. You guys set the.
Is that all? So
yes.
Is that all we need from the city? Just the resolution for the 3 years? Aaron?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And on Thursday night, if the board of commissioners, the county board approves that the term as well as the amount estimated to be collected, then that will set the path for how much can be on the city's list and the county's list from there.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, if we might, unless there's someone else that has a comment, if we'll draw this discussion to an end and go to item 2, the status of the Oglethorpe Conference Center. And Mr. Mayor, would you like to open those comments?
Can I interrupt real quick before we leave the SPLOST and ask the question? I apologize for interrupting, but if all gets passed, again, my question is, depending on the outcome of the county's vote on Thursday, whether it's strictly sunsetting by the year or strictly sunsetting by the amount, when does the city then need to submit something? When are we coming back to the table to review the SPLOST lists and then be able to submit that and go forward?
We would have to decide that rather quickly. You would, if we give you the dollar amount, perhaps then you could fine tune yours as to whether or not it's based on the 65 or the 68.5, and we could tweak. You could tweak those final numbers so that we can continue to move down this short path that we have. Does that sound feasible?
Yeah, I'm just wasn't sure if we specifically had to gather back together again, if there were certain requirements that needed to be met as far as city and county coming together, what those requirements were.
I believe, my understanding, and it's a limited understanding, that when you could decide, submit the list, and it could be submitted over to the Board of Commissioners, and it could be incorporated. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
So we don't have to meet again jointly, I think.
That's my understanding.
Martin is asking.
Yeah.
I think our city manager is going to handle that for us, and I guess with the county administrator, they should be able to make that right like it should be.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And just one note on that fact, we will be together again with the Unity Breakfast. I think that the chamber is doing. So if there's a need to take some action, I think our bodies are going to be together during that time also.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Mayor, if you would give us comments on the Oglethorpe Conference Center, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This other item, status of the Oglethorpe Conference Center, it seems to be a bone of contention for years and years and years. I'm pretty sure everyone knows that the city made a gallant effort to, at many times, to construct a conference center. There's some history behind it. most of us have that history. We can get that history as to how we attempted to construct that. I want to make a comment concerning Commissioner Kaysen when he stated that we should build it. That was had to be about 4 years ago, maybe, when we was ready to have it be infused with the library, and we made a gallant effort, but right now we realize that we are at a crossroads. I don't believe that we are going to be able to construct this conference center, given all the constraints and ramifications. But we would like to repurpose that if some way. I need to talk to city attorney and the rest of the commissioners to talk about maybe repurpose that those monies to do a project at right in the middle of the heart of the city, do a museum or something at Rise Risley. I think would be a good project to do, and that way we don't have to. We can do something with those funds, and I know it's been hard for the county commissioners because the city hasn't done anything with that SPLOST project. It's over 20 years old, and here we are again with it. I think if we put this towards a project with Rise Risley, they have tax credits that they can get. So I think it will be a good project. However, I don't have all the ramifications about it right now. I only got a small briefing about it. So I would like to say, even though we need to either declare the project, the conference center, infeasible, or repurpose those funds to do something else. Any other commissioner want to comment?
From the county side, I will.
Yeah, I would like to add because I made a suggestion that we use the funds to repurpose Colored Memorial, not as a museum, but as a meeting space. And it has an auditorium and it has large classroom space where you can have at least 20 to 30 people in for smaller meetings. And there's several classrooms in there. Ms. Hamilton is on here. She can explain it. And she can also talk about the leverage funds that will come with, I think what the ask is, 2 million of the, and I'm not sure if we have 3 million or 2.6 million of SPLOST still left. But but 2 million can be used toward it. And then there's new market tax credit funding of $2 million. And then Colored Memorial is a historic site already. And it would qualify, we believe, based on our consultant at Coastal, with Coastal of $2 million. So we're talking about leveraging another $4 million for the project. Ms. Hamilton, you want to share with us what we're looking at Rise Risley?
You're muted.
All right.
Oh, there. I'm sorry, I was still muted. As everyone knows, the Rise Risley Coastal has taken possession of the buildings located at 1800 Albany Street. These buildings this was in partnership with the Board of Education, where they turned the property over to us, the entire campus. And so those buildings sit on approximately 4.3 acres. And so the building we're specifically talking about is the Colored Memorial. And the Colored Memorial, the entire campus itself is sits on the National Historic Register. And so what we are going to be doing with the entire campus is to have the campus renovated and then provide services for the community that lives, for the residents that surround it. And as all of you know, that is a very distressed area. And so right now, currently, we have one of the buildings that is dedicated to provide the social services that are needed for so many of our families, particularly during this time of the pandemic. And so we have one building, which is the elementary school building there. The other building is the Jackson Center, where we will be utilizing that building also for as a commercial kitchen, childcare facility, as well as training in the culinary area, in the area of culinary arts, and as well as doing an urban garden. And then we also have the alumni building, which is occupied by the Risley alumni, who are individuals who either attended the school themselves or taught there at the school. And so what we are focusing on here for this meeting is the Colored Memorial. And the Colored Memorial, as Commissioner Booker stated, is a building that has a very huge auditorium in it with all of the original, everything that's original, the original flooring, the wooden floors, the staging, as well as a number of, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it is 7 or 8 very large rooms that were utilized as classrooms at one point. And so what we would like to do is, and what we were actually planning on doing with that building anyway, was utilizing that building as a performing arts center as well. And these built as well as having, and when I say performing arts, is also for services that for the children in the surrounding area, to expose them to different forms of art. And that could be music, that is dance, that is performing arts, and everything else that comes in between. But it was to utilize it as that. But then also at the same time, the building that we have been approached as from a number of different organizations wanting to utilize that facility once it has been renovated and is up and running, to provide, to do a number of things such as the symphony, as putting on plays and things of that nature, and also to utilize that building as a place to have meetings as well. And so that is in essence what we would like to do with the building. We think the building is the setup of the building is very comparable. It is able to hold a lot of different, as the various classrooms can hold different numbers of people, depending on how it is that it's set up. But also in addition to that, with the Jackson building being there on the campus as well, and having a commercial kitchen there available, it would also have the ability, we would have the ability to be able to cater events if so necessary, while at the same time doing training for individuals for as it relates to job training and things of that nature as well. So the campus itself, the campus itself will be utilized to provide services for the community, for the families in need, but also serve as a place where people can come, and it can be used for meetings as well as entertainment as well for the community. And what we're looking to do is to jump to actually for it to lead to a full revitalization of the community that surrounds it.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Basically, I believe we are here to actually decide whether we are going to, how we're going to declare this project, the Overthrow Conference Center, what we're going to do with it. Do we make it infeasible, or do we repurpose the funds, or how do we do that moving forward? I imagine if we don't put it on the resolution this time, then we have to wait until the next, I think it's in November, I believe, to do something. So I'm not sure, but with Brian, Corey, will you give us a little direction as to what we have to do here?
Sure. With regards to the conference center, because it's a joint city and county, technically a joint city and county project, the law would require that both the county and the city pass resolutions declaring the project infeasible, and then selecting one of the two, or saying both, modified uses for the funds. The two modified uses are reducing general obligation debt or rolling back property taxes. And with regard to the vote, the resolution would need to, by both the city and the county, would need to call for a vote by the voters at the next SPLOST referendum. So if the city and county elects to do the SPLOST, and it sounds like that is what is going forward, the question of infeasibility for the conference center would need to be placed on that ballot for the voters to decide. And in doing so, you need to include that modified use on that ballot. So that, unfortunately, even if it's, the deeming of something infeasible doesn't open it up, for free use, the law only provides for these two rather limited modified uses.
So the question would be, if the only two choices of deeming the project infeasible are to use it towards rolling back taxes or reducing general obligation debts then if you want to open it up to the full community to find out, would they be in support of taking those same funding and roll it into another specific project, how would we do that? Does that have to be, obviously, is that a separate vote? Do we need to put it on this SPLOST 7 list? How would we go about offering that opportunity?
Because of the nature of the SPLOST law, I'm not sure that that would be a possibility. Okay. I think that the way it reads now is that if both the city and county passed it, determining and making the determination that the project is infeasible, the resolutions by the city and county would also need to select one of these two modified uses or both, and then put that question to the voters. So the voters would be voting on, a yes or no of whether or not to declare the project infeasible and to allow it to be used for that selected modified use.
So what would happen? Obviously, the city commission needs to vote on that. The county commission needs to vote on that. What if they each come forward with a different vote? What if the city says we would rather redirect those towards paying down general obligation debt, but the county says they want to roll back property taxes? Or we need to make sure we come to a consensus first?
Yes.
No, I think the way the law reads, because it's a joint project, I think we would need to have a unified front on the modified use selected. But then if the voters, voted in the affirmative to move forward with that modified use, the remaining money a determination needed to be made to see, county, what goes to the county and what goes to the city, and then the city and county would be bound to use those funds as approved by the voters.
If I could interject here, Aaron, and if you would help me. So are we saying the city could not decide to use the fund to rehab a property that's not on the Overthorpe block for a meeting space / conference center?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying on the
right. I
procedure.
Hear what you're saying, Brian.
Okay.
I was asking Aaron.
Sorry.
So, Commissioners, what I would propose, if this is something that both the city and county want to do, is there's a few things to unpack on that. So the current MOU between the county and the city dictates the terms of the Oglethorpe Center, where it's going to go, how the money is used. So if there is a desire to put it on the referendum, put it on the ballot on the same referendum as the next SPLOST, we would most likely want to amend that agreement that sets out all these details. So to answer the question of what happens if one side does it and one side doesn't, hopefully that won't happen, because both parties will be voting on the same amendment to the MOU. And that would also call for the resolution to put it on the ballot. So you'd have a meeting of the minds through that. The details about where the money is repurposed according to law could be addressed in there. Currently, the county's holding around $1.3 million of the original $2 million. The city, I'm not sure how much the city has spent of their SPLOST funds, but it was $1.5 million originally. So
the city's got 1.2 million.
Okay. So roughly comparable between the two parties, 1.3, 1.2. And I think that's something that can be worked out as far as how that is split and when it goes back into the general funds or to pay off bond debt. Those matters can be addressed through the MOU amendment that would also unravel and unpack the current direction of the project that was done in 2016.
Aaron.
Can I ask for 2 points of clarification? Does it have to be GO bond debt, or does the state law basically say debt? And my second question is, if we don't deem it infeasible during the current referendum coming up in March, because I think the state law states that it has to accompany a SPLOST vote. So we would have to put it off for the next 3 to 5 years in order to do that, correct?
That's correct.
That's right.
But Aaron, I don't think you answered my question. My point is, if the city decides to move this project to the Risley campus, is that possible? If they decide to do that,
it is possible to move the conference center concept from the current location, which is the Oglethorpe block in downtown Brunswick. It is possible with the agreement of the parties, to amend the MOU for the city to move that project to another location, which would include, I think the one you're talking about, and it's all in the details. So generally speaking, they could move it. The requirements would be that the city would need to own the project and would need to own the property, and it'd be a city project. So the money could not be given to a third party for their purposes. It'd have to remain a governmental property and project. So it is possible in concept. The details would have to be really fleshed out on that, but it is possible. A few things we'd have to look at and try to figure out is the property that was conveyed to the city in 2016 as part of the process, as well as some of the expenditure of the funds that have already been used in furtherance of the project at that location. But it is feasible and it is possible, Commissioner.
So that would make the city now have to take ownership of the Rise Risley property.
Not all of it, Commissioner Harris. Just the property that's going to be used for this project that could be carved out for ownership by the city, where Colored Memorial is.
So that still would have the city having to take ownership and responsibility for that property.
Yes, but Coastal is prepared to take full maintenance with the contract with the city to operate it and be responsible for the maintenance of the property, because that was our plan anyway. And Coastal has the wherewithal to do that.
Okay, so now that makes us hit this can down the road another 4 or 5 years.
No, this is a solution to it, because if the city decides to do this, then it will meet the requirements for a conference/meeting space for this splash project, and it won't have the long-term responsibility for the maintenance of the property. That would be up to Coastal.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I had this item put on the agenda because one of the other concerns with voters was the status of this project. This project came out of a joint investment by the city and the county called Blueprint Brunswick. And the main lead on that project, which each body paid $100,000 plus each, was to build a conference center down in Brunswick. The city had a portion of property, a triangular part right there on Bay Street in Newcastle, and the county had the portion of property where the old mental health used to be, the Holiday Inn, the mental health building was there. And I was part of the commission that pushed this project forward, and it was voted on, and approved for the SPLOST. And the county agreed to let the city take the lead on that project, and worked through the course of the years as the city sought a way financially to validate their need of the investment. And so along the way, a lot of agreements were made with various commissions. And then recently, the city commission declared basically that the conference center was dead, null and void. When Commissioner Tosselson and I were in Athens getting our county certification, they had the ACCG lawyer there. And we asked them about this situation and how to resolve it for all the parties. And basically, the law is pretty clear. When you put a project on SPLOST, you have to build it. And it included an attachment with that land. And if you don't build it, then you cannot repurpose money. And you have to put it before the voters if you're going to do anything else. In other words, in that project, and take those monies back out, to each entity that has their accounts tied up. And I asked Aaron, and I think Aaron probably can elaborate a little bit more. There's some land commitments that were in agreement that's all kind of technical here, and that involves some commitments from the city back to the county for that land. And so it's just something that, we as joint bodies need to put together the bed. I think everybody's excited about doing something for Risley, but I think we have to end this project before the voters. And we can't use the words repurpose, because that's what makes voters mad. When you vote for a project, you fund a project, you do that project. If you're not going to do that project, then you end that project and take the monies that you have back to the general public and repurpose them. But Aaron, I don't think they realize the tangle of commitments in the current contracts. Will you just re-elaborate that for everybody?
Certainly, Commissioner Fendick, thank you. So this is a SPLOST 2001 and SPLOST 2005 project collectively between the county and the city. The original proposal was for the county to deed over the property, and this goes back to 2003. The original MOU between the county and the city had the county deeding over the property to the Oglethorpe block when the conference center was completed, but not before that. In 2016, fast forward to 2016, the city approached the county, and there was a meeting, joint meeting or two, where the city requested the county go ahead and deed the property to the city because that would allow them more flexibility as they made plans to work with contractors, et cetera. So in 2016, the county and city entered into a new agreement, which superseded the 2003 agreement, set out some additional terms on how the conference center was going to be built, and really just expanded it on that generally. One of those terms in there, in order to give the city the property in advance of it being built, was a commitment from the city that the conference center would be built on that location. That was the consideration that flowed from the city to the county and vice versa, that in exchange for that, there was a promise to put the conference center on that block. There was a kind of a back door to that if the city chose not to put it on that block within 3 years. So y'all probably remember that within 3 years, then the city would pay the county the fair market value of the property if they either did not or chose not to put the property on that block. Again, because the county deeded over to the city for free or for no cost due to the location of it. In 2019, excuse me, in 2019, the city and county agreed to extend that substantial completion date from April 7th, 2019 to April 7, 2022. So there is some additional time before that time is here, but there is an agreement between the county and the city to, if it is moved to another location, that fair market value will be turned over. So that's one of the things that, or will be paid. So that's one of the items that would have to be addressed, is what to do with that that part of the agreement going forward. If either the voters approve the abandonment or the abandonment of the project, or use of those funds for bonds, or rolling back taxes on the general fund, and the general fund, is what to do with those. Or if it's moved to another location, what to do with the that agreement between the county and the city.
Well, let me interject something here, because I hear what you're saying, Cap, about what you found out about legally, what funds could be done, what could be done with this. But we live here in the city of Brunswick. We're talking about trying to do something in the poorest part of this county that's legal, that will leverage additional funding and act as a catalyst project. We should be able to figure out how to make this happen. Now, if we don't want to take leadership on this for this part of the community, that's fine. But to say that, oh, well, we need to give it back because that's what the law says. The law says some other things too. This can be done. We have to choose to do this, and we can work out this, whatever it is about the property there between the county and the city. There's a number of ways to do that if we want to do it. And if we don't want to do this, that's fine. But to fall back and say, well, to tell the public that this can't be done, this is the only thing that we can do, is to put it back on the ballot, so then they can decide if we use it for debt or for something else, for the other thing. That's not accurate, and it's not truthful for them. That's not a truthful choice. Now, and it's fine if we choose not to do it, that's fine. But this is certainly something that can be done, can be worked out. Coastal has to work with all. Go ahead.
Excuse me, Commissioner, but and of course, I don't know. I have read through all of the documents that were presented, and certainly there has been a lot of decisions that have been made in regards to the convention center. But my first question is, since we only have, I think the original amount appropriated was $3 million, was that, and I've heard subsequent to that the cost was going to be $8 million or more. I guess my question is, basically, if we had started out thinking that this was a $3 million project and it got to be an $8 million project, then it's kind of like what they are trying not to do with the courthouse. I guess my thoughts are, if we were planning for a $3 million project, if we can do this conceptually with Risley Convention Conference Center with what's left of the $3 million, would that not be, and since the location was not a part of the referendum, the location was part of the IGAs between the city and county, would that not be feasible to utilize the funding for this concept based on the fact that we couldn't do an $8 million convention center anyway? We got to do something for the amount of money that's been, I guess, allocated.
Makes perfect sense to me. Plus, from my understanding, the chamber and the CBB were supposed to be tenants to help with the overhaul, the maintenance costs. and maybe Cap, you can speak to that. And they pulled out, and they're above the Suncoast Bank, and so that would put the city even in a more debt because they would be in have to cover the maintenance costs by themselves.
Well, Commissioner Booker, I would say this so that you understand clearly, and I know that you talked to Commissioner Thompson and Fauske and some of the others. First of all, I want to reaffirm we're excited about doing something at Risley and want to help that happen. So hear me clearly on that. And I think what we have to do is we have to clear up a situation that has to be legally cleared up, and that involves the contractual arrangements with the convention center and all of that. That's a separate thing from Risley. What if we close the conference? My suggestion to everyone is to consider putting the ballot option before the public, which we have to do. You close that project down and unwind when that, and I believe the voters will approve not going forward with the conference center on that property. And then each entity gets their funds to go back for debt. And then you take out debt for the Risley project and use those funds to pay it off. Those are things to be worked out. But
I hear what you're saying, but I disagree with that. And I'm sorry to interrupt you because I think that's misleading.
Let the attorneys weigh in on that. I'm just, telling you that I'm for.
I talked to the same attorney.
Okay.
And I think he just said the city can choose to do this project at Risley. We have to decide on how to work out, yes, between the agreement on the property with the city and the county. And that can be worked out. But we have to choose to do that. And then it would be closed out. And it will be closed out as part of a solution that the city led on and is doing something for the poorest part of this county. And to go through and not have the county participate in that, I think is wrong. When we started this as a joint project, and it wasn't really feasible to me for $3 million back 20 years ago. And then you had two entities that were supposed to support the city pull out as well. So yeah, it was doomed to fail, but it hasn't failed yet. This is the solution. And we're not talking about just giving $2 million to the wind. We're talking about somebody that's bringing $4 million to the table and going to cover the maintenance costs.
I'm not arguing.
Mr. Chair,
I'm just making sure
I make a suggestion
that I'm just making sure that our community and us as governing bodies understand what's at issue here and contracts that may not have been aware of, and I'm all for working anything out, and this is the start of it.
But Kat,
and
that's
I'll
what
let
I'm
the lawyers way back on it.
But that's what I'm saying. When we're giving the community information, we need to be clear about the information. Nobody's saying not meet whatever the legal agreement between the city and the county. That can be worked out. But we have to decide as leaders that this is something we want to do. And if the attorneys are saying this is within our legal rights, then the next step is it takes leadership. We have to figure it out. That's what I think.
And Commissioner Booker, I think we're on board with that. So if I may suggest that we ask the respective attorneys to get together, work out some options to present to us, and let's find solutions to this and move forward. Let's get the legalese out of the way and move forward with something that I agree with you on could benefit the city and as you state, the poorest section of our community. I think we're in agreement with that. So if Mr. Mayor, if we could ask our attorneys to give us some options on that, with as much haste as possible.
Yes, sir. I agree with you. Yes.
We can find a way to carry it forward.
I believe Commissioner Quinn wanted to say something before we cut this off. I know seem to be getting ready to cut this off, but I don't want to.
I was of the opinion that we needed to get the attorneys, as well as probably the county manager and the city manager, together, just to make sure that we have all the scenarios that can be laid out so that we can look at and discuss it together. I mean, we're getting a lot of different information and points, so I think it's a great idea to have it laid out before us in writing what exactly our options are, and then we can all have a serious discussion about it.
I agree, and I will ask the city attorney to add this to his agenda, to our agenda for discussion tomorrow night as well.
Can it also be discussed at the point between both attorneys where that leaves us with the properties of that comprise the assemblage of the Oglethorpe block? In other words, if the city pays the county fair market value, where does that leave us? Does that mean that the city has the sole responsibility or ability to then market that property, move into a public-private partnership? I mean, how can we then redevelop the Oglethorpe block?
That's my concern as well, Julie.
And that's the other benefit of this. It gives the city a lot of options for the Oglethorpe block, and really trying to figure out how to do the conference center is kind of held that property hostage, and this releases it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could at this point, Mr. Mayor, if we could ask our respective attorneys to get us some options, and
yes, sir.
And let's find solution here. I think there's a consensus again that this is something that we ought to find a solution for.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I agree. But there's an urgency to do this, and we don't need to keep, as Commissioner Brooks say, kicking this can down the road. We got to. It's the urgency.
Yes,
a fast sense of urgency to get this done.
That was Commissioner Harris said. We can't keep.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Harris. I apologize. I apologize.
And let me ask this: is there a presentation, Commissioner Booker, that you all can provide us with the specifics and information on what you all have stated? Because this is my first time hearing this.
Yes.
I'm not acquainted with this. I've not heard about it. I've not read about it. I've not seen it. I've not studied it. So, for me, I need to see this information and get comfortable with it. So we can hasten. We don't need to keep pushing it and pushing it. Get the information to us so we can take a look at it, review it, and we can keep on moving on it and not pacify and keep kicking it. If it's something that's going to be feasible, let's take a look at it. Let's move. Let's do what we need to do.
Yeah, certainly the information is prepared as far as Risley, and Treese and her team can provide that. The other would be, I guess, from the attorneys.
So that means that you all need to share that information immediately with us. You need to share it immediately with both of the attorneys so that a combined presentation and understanding of the project itself, how it falls within the law, how we can move it, the monies, all that kind of stuff. So we can go ahead, read up on this and get familiar with this project.
I think that is the consensus.
That's the charge. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, with that, I don't know if there's any other business to come before us tonight. Is there anything that anyone would want to add before we adjourn?
I'm just going to ask one question, and that is, with the Rise Risley and that project being brought forward by a specific commissioner, do we need to open it up to the greater public? In other words, if there's other projects that people have thought of, want to bring forward. I just want to make sure that we don't work ourselves into a corner because we didn't open it up to the greater community.
Again, Commissioner Martin, Mayor Pro Tem Martin, if this is not something that the city doesn't want to do or the county, then they can just say that. Opening it up now when we're at this late date and trying to find a solution, which this is a solution to this 20-year-old splash funding, then trying to open it up, just to me, is just not the way to go. I mean, this is something that's positive for the poorest part of the community. It can be a catalyst project. You're familiar with what they coastal plans to do there at Risley. And if again, more information can be provided to you all, to everybody on the city commission and the county commission about this project, and coastal's wherewithal to be able to handle the maintenance going forward.
I think we'll get all the information, Mayor Pro Tem, and then we will be able to make a good assessment as to where we go with that. So
Yeah, and I'm not casting any dispersions on the project. I just felt that was an important question to ask.
it is.
It is. And please make sure that the question that Mayor Pro Tem asked about how does it what light does it put us in with that Oglethorpe property, so we can get the moving on that as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that's all our questions that we have for the City Commission. Unless Commissioner Casey want to make one comment before we go.
No, happy trails.
All right.
I thank you so much for taking your time tonight to meet with us, and I think good conversation tonight and good marching orders. So we'll take that and move forward, and we'll look to expedite some options for this. Thank you all for attending, and we will stand adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Good
evening.
night.
Good
night.
first meeting.